How could you see this actually working for us? Sounds like something you'd say when you're breaking up with someone, but you know.
I thought we were good, John. A couple of weeks ago, Nikon sent us out the ZR for testing. This is a camera that we've heard a lot about. We're excited to try it. And this is our first impression of the camera because 2 weeks is only a short amount of time to really get to grips with it. But this is our unbiased, non-sponsored review. So this is just generally our first impressions of the camera.
We've literally just started.
This is the Nikon ZR video. What's your first impressions of this camera?
It's pretty hot. I was wondering like the feel of it in your hand. Is it like made of like carbon or something? It's really no.
I don't know.
I don't know. It feels good in your hand, and I like how small it is.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Perfect.
Video quickly.
There we go.
So we looked at our calendar and we chose a couple of weeks where we knew we'd be out on a variation of different shoots. We had 2 shoots last week. The first one was a kind of product style shoot, but in a working environment, which was in a big bakery, lots of different processes for us to capture, and some really varied products that we'd be looking at throughout the day. The second shoot was an event, a kind of like conference style event, bit of a corporate style shoot.
They're very different shoots, but a real good representation of what our working week looks like. So we've got to test it in many different areas and different lighting circumstances as well.
Which is hopefully a beneficial thing rather than us taking it out and just trying to do the most like stunning over the top visuals. We actually took it into working situations that a production company like ours would expect to have on a kind of weekly, monthly basis.
Nikon sent us the camera itself, obviously, and then we've got a couple of lenses with that. We've got the 24-120 f4 lens and the 50mm 1.8. In this video, we're not going to go too deep into the specs because there's a lot to unpack with this camera, but just a few of the headline specs. This is a 24.5 megapixel 6K full frame sensor. It's got dual base ISO, 800 and 6400, can capture 15 stops of dynamic range. In 6K, it can shoot up to 60 frames per second, 4K up to 120, and Full HD up to 240. It's got a 32-bit flow internal audio recording, 3.5 audio input, and you can also monitor through headphones as well. So on paper, it's a pretty compelling piece of kit, and it packs it obviously into a very small form factor as well. So yeah, as soon as you get it into your hands, you're like, this feels very new.
Yeah, and I think the big thing that really obviously made it blow up when it was announced and released was the fact that no one working in film or video really gave Nikon a second thought. It was much more of a stills-based style of camera.
Yeah.
But yeah, like when we heard about that, we were definitely super intrigued to see how that would work.
It's definitely a cat amongst the pigeons sort of camera. I think a lot of other camera brands like Canon, Sony and Lumix are going to be looking at their lineups and thinking, okay, what can we bring out in the next year or two that's going to keep us in the front running for video first cameras, because this has really shifted the industry, I think.
The price point of it, not that that influenced, my first physical impression of it, but knowing it's just so cheap. It's surprisingly solid for what it is. I don't know, when it's that price, I'm just thinking there's going to be corners cut. It's going to feel like really cheap and plasticky, but actually, yeah, these dials are all quite nice. There's a lot of they just feel way more functional than you'd expect. You'd expect them to be the kind of things that would be, falling off after a couple of years usage. But yeah.
And I think it's very well weather sealed, and it's a solidly built camera. Same for the lenses, actually. I was very impressed with the build quality. The first thing I noticed with this camera was just the size and weight of it, because we're doing a lot of handheld stuff on the C300 Mark III we're filming on, and then the C80 as well. Once those have got a larger zoom lens on it, you do feel it after a few hours, or the end of the day certainly. Yeah, it just became very obvious how small and light this camera is on a long shoot day. There's a little bit to be said about that there in terms of optics. I think I was very aware it's quite a high profile client of ours, and I think if we were to rock up to one of their shoots with only this camera, not rigged up or anything, I'd be a bit conscious, even though we know that the quality's there.
Yeah,
I guess it just looks less convincing to a crowd.
It might seem like a pretty silly point, but we've definitely been on shoots before where we've just gone with DSLR style form factor cameras like the R5, and yeah, it's never been a major thing, but people have sometimes flagged you're filming on that, as if it's not something that they'd expect, particularly if they've hammered quite a lot of budget into a project. Obviously, at the end of the day, it still produces great results, but optics is definitely something that we do have to think about from time to time. We had a couple of days to get used to it, and then we were out for our first shoot. So that was going to a bakery, filming products, but also the processes behind making the products.
So we've wrapped those shoots now and we're currently in the post-production process, and I've just been looking through it. It does sit really nicely amongst our Canon stuff.
You can see in these two shots just how well they match up together. These were both at a similar aperture and pretty much the same process.
That screen on the camera, it
Felt like a step up, really.
real big step up.
Yeah.
Just from what I was seeing on the day, back of the camera, it was looking really nice. I mean, the C80, for all its amazing qualities, the screen is probably not one of them. So coming to that screen was really, really nice.
Big thing to consider is, whilst it's great that it's got red raw capabilities, the file sizes are massive, so you definitely want to be selective about how you shoot. And we'd found that generally a lot of the codecs sap data a lot more than what we're used to. We kind of went for a bit of a default ProRes 422 10-bit codec to start with, and found that even that was just sapping tons of data, way more than we would usually see when we're using our Canon cameras. Maybe that's just a bit of a quirk that we need to look into a little bit more specific to this camera, but it does seem to be general consensus that it's a camera that will eat your data like mad.
And that is a factor that would put us off this camera, just because we shoot so much interviews and long form video that we'd just be cringing at the thought of the file sizes, let alone like having to change SD cards every 10 minutes or something. The next shoot that we had that week was an events shoot, so I think that was probably putting this camera through its paces. It was a really dark event space, there was lots of changing lights, there was screens around the room, so not ideal for a lot of cameras. But in particular, I found I wanted to take some stills on this camera at one point, so I put it over into photo mode, and that's when it sort of registered for me that obviously it's got a electronic shutter rather than mechanical. So there's a few banding issues I found with the stills. I mean, before we hit record, we were chatting about this camera, coming up with our sort of final thoughts on it, and we were talking about how this would be a great gimbal option.
Yeah, because since we got the C80 last year, we've generally tried to use that as our go-to run and gun gimbal mounted camera if we're doing that style of shoot, and we've moved to that from using an R5. And the main reason we tend to shy away from using the R5 is that the log profile just doesn't match up as nicely to the other log profiles that we've got. Whereas I feel like this has just got so much capabilities, being able to shoot in RAW, in Red RAW, and then log as you'd expect as well. Like having all that in such a small body that's so lightweight on a gimbal, I think just if we were doing more like active shoots, going out to like do sports coverage, that kind of thing, it'd be perfect to just really push the production value of what you can get with a camera on a small gimbal. It doesn't feel like it's the right camera for us here at Manto, but there's so many use cases where I can see it being an absolutely brilliant camera. But definitely really excited to see what Nikon do next. If they can make this at such a small price point, what could they do if they start producing cameras that are coming in at about 5,000–6,000?
Yeah, if they do like a bigger brother or a Mark II of this, I'd be really intrigued to see where they go, because this is for their first stab at a video dedicated camera, this is really compelling. All right, I think, should we wrap it up there?
Yeah.
He's doing his hair. So those are our first impressions after using this camera for the last 2 weeks, taking out on real world client paid shoots, and yeah, it's been an interesting couple of weeks. And though this might not be the right camera for us yet, hopefully it's given you a bit of an insight into if it could be right for you.
If you enjoyed this video, we've got plenty more kit and tech reviews on our channel. Thanks for watching.
Cheers. So what do you actually think of this camera? It's a piece of shit. 2 weeks ago, Nikon sent us out this. This is the Nikon. Nikon.
Is it Nike on? Is it Nick on? Is it Nike?
Apparently it's both.